Come take invest. We're talking about investing, finance, and professional development for today's tips only. The investment gonna talk today would be ETH. So it's my second posting as of today. Respect to recording time of 3:23 p.m. on the Eastern time. Ethereum current trading $4,222, down about 0.04% so far. Respect to overall crypto market is relatively flat, right? But besides selective coins that are a little bit more prominent, with respect to Shiba Inu is currently up about 16.52%. Seems like the bullish momentum is still surging. So we'll dive into technical fronts to see how's that going on a momentum perspective and what are some of the next foreshadow that we should be expecting going forward. While on the selective altcoin as well, we are seeing some buying activities with respect to XRP. Seems like the bullish momentum is definitely confirmed per our technical analysis that we've been talking about in the previous days. Right? It seems like the golden cross is crossing, and at the same time, seems like the setup on more of like a downward wedge pattern is confirming as well. So we are seeing some initialization of that momentum being formed right now, currently up about 2.47%. Algorand's up about 2% respectively as well, which we'll dive into a little bit more. Seems like we broke above the $2 mark, which is a relatively monumental mark, right, in a flat value, but also in a technical front perspective as well. On the equity side, we saw relatively large volatility across the market today, right? Early in the half of the day, I would say from basically market open 9:30 a.m. on the Eastern time all the way to 1 p.m. on the Eastern time, we have sustained a relatively sizable sector rotation across the market, right? Prominently displayed by the high growth and high tech, high cap stocks, right? However, as the noontime broke out, we saw that there was some news talking about with respect to COVID variants, but also with respect to the pop the balloon affectation on the Facebook stocks. Seems like the sell-off from the negative earning report that we've experienced recently seems like the selling pressure is still sustaining. So when that affectation happens, knowing the fact that Facebook does drive the index market as a whole, has a lot of correlation effect as well. That it dragged down the market from there and incentivized a lot of trigger sell-off across technology stocks, which is the reason why you see that Tesla is currently down about, or kind of up about 0.02% or down about 0.02%, just kind of hover on a sideways fashion, coming back ideally back on Earth, right? When we were running really, really hot. Tried to attempt $1,100 earlier today. The all-time high was $1,094 as an all-time high. We test there, and at that point, RSI was basically at 94 out of 70, which that's a screaming extreme overbought on all levels, right? And at the same time, with respect to MACD, it was so out of the moon that it was in Neptune or something like that. So that was a logical placement for public investors and institutional investors, frankly, to sell some of the holdings. So when institutional selling start to incur on a minimal level, FOMO from the public investors start to come in as well. And it was a logical thing to do, which makes sense, right? It was definitely a little bit premature on the surge, and now we're trading more of a normalized level. Well, normalized level is still kind of a stretch. We did break above the $1,000 mark, and we are still overbought on all levels, right? So I think I went off tangent a little bit, but there's basically on a macro perspective, that's how we are triangulating both the crypto and the equity market, right? So let's dive straight into the Ethereum news specifically. So the first one on Market Watch about 3 hours ago talked about Tom Brady, which is obviously the NFL football player, the legend, gives fans 1 Bitcoin in exchange for his 600th touchdown ball. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers stars quarterback, it seems like that's something that he made a deal with one of the fans. It's quite interesting. I don't really watch football, but I'm aware of who Tom Brady is and his track record. And it seems like the 600 touchdown ball is a monumental one in a historical value perspective for 1 Bitcoin. So 1 Bitcoin is like a $62,000 for the ball. So I guess, it makes sense, right? I think sports memorabilia, I do have a large collections of it. I do understand and resonate with why that is, but in terms of appraising for the 1 Bitcoin, I think this is just more of Tom's, personal preference, I guess. The next one's a Bazinga 3 hours ago. Talk about Leatherface slashes the Ethereum blockchain with new Texas Chainsaw Massacre NFT. So it seems like there's a franchise related NFT that is based off the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Quite interesting. I've seen a movie. I think a lot of people have seen a movie. Um, I don't quite get it. I guess it's a form of art appraisal. I don't quite get the NFT commercialization. It's still something I'm perplexed by. But seems like there's more activities in terms of people investing into the space. I actually talked to one of the executive from Christie's recently. This woman, and she talked about, with respect to the evolution of Christie's adopting NFT in part of their auction processes and on their exchange as well. It's something that she understands it is part of the monetization plan that Christie's and some of the auction houses around the world are adopting to match with the globalizations of crypto. But I asked her specifically, what's your thought around NFT adoptions and commercialization? She was she gave me more of a diplomatic answer. She was definitely saying like, oh, it's like I don't really quite understand it either. She's more like someone that understands how to appraise arts like fine arts, like Picasso, Monet, those type of arts, which there is a huge untapped market for arts curation and collections, and there's a relatively specific methodology in terms of how you qualitatively and quantitatively monetize or appraise a specific artwork. But with respect to NFT, exchanging JPEG images, she, despite her exposure as one of the leaders or executives at Christie's, and they network quite a lot with other auctioneers as well. That she doesn't really quite get it, nor she is intended to invest into anything like this either. So, and she also said something about there was a recent NFT investment where one of her clients lost like 78% of the value of the NFT. So definitely a lot of volatility. You could either make a lot of money or lose a lot of money at the same time. And I'm just like speaking verbatim based on what my conversation with her yesterday. So more interesting news, I guess, on NFT commercialization. But I personally, would stay away from it. But it's something that's, good for the macro environment, if you may, right, for Ethereum. And then the next one is something that we already talked about with respect to how Bitcoin and Ethereum are trading, opposites of one another. It seems like we are having a separations in terms of momentum. And then the last one is really talk about the layer 2 protocol on EdgeSwap launches testnet to bring scalable low-cost transactions to Ethereum users, which is something we talked about already on fixing the lack thereof with respect to the current value proposition and what we aspire to have going forward, right? Which is low cost, low transaction fees, and also environmentally friendly as well. So let's go straight into the technicals real quick, shall we? So right now we are trading at the $4,218, kind of trade on a sideways fashion, forming some sort of an upward wedge, right, per our technical analysis that we've performed this morning. It seems like we're dragging up, right? I don't think the whales are incentivized to sell, nor public investors are incentivized to buy either. So we just kind of trade on a sideways fashion, right? But despite all of that, we're still overbought. We're still at 68 out of 70. So in terms of risking your hard-earned money, is it the right logical incentive for you to do so right now? I think no. I think ideally you wait until the confirmation of what's going on. And I think with respect to the wedge formation that we're seeing right now, I think it's still relatively preliminary, but I think that's what's going to be happening. We're going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. Eventually we'll break. And that's something that, we've seen the movie before, right? And it seems like the movie is slowly depicting that. And ideally, with respect to the frame of reference, will be the ones below here, right? 3845, 3475, and then 3325. But ideally, 3150 will be a much more logical level in dollar cost average at, as we deplete back to 35. Bitcoin right now is we formed a dev cross recently, and we're being sustained because of some of the positive news, and because the whales are not really doing much. I think a lot of whales are focusing a lot on specifically the equity side right now, which we're still seeing some sector rotation, which we saw in the last 2 days so far. And I think more sector rotation should technically be coming, right? And that's something that we will incur until the Santa Claus rally, right, around Christmas time. So technically, we still have about like a month and a half left. So right now, would I be incurring some risk right now, knowing the fact that with this big escalator, I would say no. I think waiting until the 43, waiting until the 40 would be more logical level, and I think we should deplete back down to Earth, ideally as the next confirmation from there. Dogecoin right now, again, right? This is not an ideal level. We're 60 out of 70. We're still, having a well back kind of. And I think ideally selling back down to the 20 to like 21 to 20 cents would be much more logical. Cardano right now, which forming a downward wedge, which is good because it means that we should experience some percolations as an upward surge coming. So, and on top of that, we are 45 out of 70. So this is not a bad setup right now. But ideally, if you want to wait until maybe 207 or 205, that's not a bad level to buy at all. Solana right now is struggling. We are curving back down right now. We try to break all-time high, which we did 218.9. So 219 was the peak at all-time high. Right now, we just basically try to come back to Earth. I think the apex was formed already, so ideally at the 72 out of 70, we need to cool back down until we come back to Earth to 35. So ideally, again, right, the 135, the 113, 93, and 66 respectively would be more logical. XRP, we are forming a golden cross slowly, and this makes sense, right? Because we're forming a downward wedge, so we are surging because the technical is confirming the wedge. So on top of that, we are forming like a cross section upward right now at the 55.70. So I think ideally buying XRP is not a bad level, and I think the logical level was again 105 when we were experiencing that sell off, minimally in the previous days, right? Polkadot's bearish setup, we are forming a cross section slowly. We're still at the 65, so I think reaching this gap and selling back down to 33, selling back down to 25 would be logical. Algorand, we are still. This is definitely not a good setup right now. You could see clearly we have an apex that's formed, and we basically broke about $2. We still overbought the 63 out of 70, so ideally coming back down to 160 to 150 would be more logical. Shiba Inu is on basically in Mars right now. We are at the 81 out of 70, so I don't have to explain what that means. You guys know how stretched up, and we are basically having dinner with astronauts right now up in the air in space. So not a good idea to incur risk right now. I think this is went up way too fast, right? How long did it take? It took us basically less than a month for us to search this enormously. This is just exponential growth, right? And with respect to the search right now, I don't think it makes sense to test your luck. But I think if you are gonna think that we're gonna retest and have the same abnormal surge, hitting the 96 again, we might have more room to run up to, right? Getting to 50, obviously, which is the mark that we're trying to get to right now, and then break above to who knows what. But I think the risk versus reward ratio is not a good level right now because we are overbought and the money has to come from somewhere, right? Ultimately, so not the best setup. But if you want to buy, I would wait until it cools back down on the RSI scale and MACD completely first. So with respect to the market cycle, I know it's very abnormal. We are basically skipping steps right now based on the whale's activities. But again, for us to like retest all-time high, we need to kind of deplete back to normal, right? And to do so is to look at the frame of reference for risk management, right? To dollar cost average when the RSI and the MACD are deplete back to basically ground on Earth, right? We don't want to be buying when there's a lack of substance up in the air, right? There are a lot of lack of consolidation zones that we are currently testing right now, just kind of levitating all over. So definitely be cautious about where your money is going. Do not chase in because you feel like it, but invest because it's the right execution logically. So yeah, feel free to use this as a reference. Take a picture or share this with with yourself or with your friends that you want to be helpful. And let me know how I can be helpful. In the meantime, if you have any specific questions, happy to address them. And stay tuned for the next video coming up. Take care.